Pursuant to the governor's executive order, members of the West Sac Economic Development and Housing Commission staff and participants are participating in this meeting via a teleconference, which, if you're watching us at home, is on Wave Cable Channel 20 or live streaming from the city's website. To submit a comment for this meeting, please email the commission clerk and write public comment in the subject line. In the body of the email, include the item number and the title of the item, as well as your comment. Comments that were received by 5 p.m. would have been provided to the commissioners and posted on the website. Comments submitted shall become part of the record of the meeting. To make a verbal comment during the meeting, join the meeting on the Zoom link or the telephone number. The chair will request public comment during item 1A prior to the first consent item on the agenda. Once the chair has announced the public comment period, if you'd like to make a comment, please do one of the following. If you're joining on the Zoom meeting, press the raise your hand button. Or if you're on the phone, press *9. When it's your turn to comment, the chair or clerk will call you by name or speak the phone number, and the city staff will unmute your microphone. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Once your public comment has ended, your microphone will be muted again. So I believe, do we need to do a roll call, clerk of the board?
Yes. So yes, let me go ahead and start roll call. Let's start with Commissioner Dawson.
Here.
Commissioner Guerra.
Here.
Commissioner Kim. Okay. Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Singh.
Here.
Commissioner Thornton. Commissioner White, or
Here.
Chairperson White, I apologize. And lastly, we do have an alternate member, Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I am still new to this, so please correct me if I get things out of order. But it is time for those presentations by the public for matters that are not on the agenda. Clerk, did we have any comments provided before the meeting?
There were no comments from the public for this meeting by email or now. Thank you.
We can move on to item number 2, which is swearing in of our alternative commissioner, Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. Okay, so after the oath is read, please raise your right hand and please respond with either I do or I agree. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter? Alternate Commission Member Thomas?
I do.
Congratulations, you are now a sworn member of the Economic Development and Housing Commission.
Thank you.
Yay!
As stated, it is truly an honor to be here with you.
Well, speaking for the rest of the commissioners and the staff, we're really pleased that you're with us, and thank you for giving your time to the city and representing your friends and neighbors in really important matters. And so with that, I will kick it over to welcoming statement from the Economic Development and Housing staff.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Katie Jacobson. I'm the Director of Economic Development and Housing for the city. And I want to specifically welcome our new commission member, Darren Thomas, along with all of the new commission members again. We look so forward to working with this commission and receiving feedback on our important future policy related matters and considerations that are under the purview of this commission. Before we move on, I did want to summarize the composition of the Economic Development and Housing department for the new commission member. So our department is comprised of 3 divisions. The first division is Community Investment Division, which is led by Katie Yancey, who's a community investment manager. We also have a parking program that is in the Community Investment Division of the department. We have the Economic Development Division, which is led by Diane Richards. She's the Economic Development Manager. She's going to be presenting to you tonight. And then we have the Housing Division, which is led by Raul Huerta, a housing manager. The balance of the staff is comprised of several positions, including Amber Sayasset, who's a program manager, Larry Lee, who's the parking manager, Fred Arnold, who is the real estate manager for the city, Elijah Ortega, who is a community investment specialist, also with you tonight, Isaiah Alford, who is also a community investment specialist in the department, and Nubi, the secretary and also clerk and staff to your commission. So tonight we have 2 reports to present to you. The first report is going to be on our economic division program and policy considerations, and also just to give you a status update on our program activities in that division over the last year.
Thank you, Katie. Moving on to item number 2 on our agenda is consideration of our consent agenda. The only item in the consent agenda this time is the meeting minutes from last month or our last meeting. So I need a motion and a second for accepting the consent agenda. And just as a reminder, since we're on Zoom and people may be listening on the phone, please make sure that you say your name and then your motion and say your name and your second.
Dan Olson, I move to confirm the minutes from the last meeting or approve.
And do we have a second?
JP Singh, I second the motion.
All right, and clerk, can you do a roll call so we can vote, please?
Definitely. Commissioner Dawson? Commissioner Dawson, I think you're muted. Okay. Moving on to Commissioner Guerra.
Yeah.
Commissioner Olson.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh.
Yes.
Commissioner, alternate commission member Thomas.
Yes.
And Chairperson White.
Yes.
And then I will go back to Commissioner Dawson. You are still muted. Oh, okay, moving forward.
Yes, sorry, my thing was messed up there.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're moving into our regular agenda item. And our first is a presentation of our business recruitment, retention, and assistance program. Over to you, Diane.
Thank you, Chairwoman White. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening to see many of you again, and welcome to our new commissioners, and thank you for your service tonight. I will be sharing my screen, but before I do that, I wanted to introduce Elijah Ortega, our community investment specialist, who's been working with me for the past year and a half in this deep dive into economic development and small business assistance. So this evening, I wanted to try and give you an overview of the recruitment, retention, and business assistance activities that we do. And because I have been in this business for a very long time, I have a lot in my head. And so I want to apologize in advance for a very comprehensive, I think, presentation. I've cut it down to 15 slides. And I also, because it is fairly long, I would like to encourage the commissioners to interject and ask questions. Raise your hands if you want to stop me or ask a question. Elijah and I will be co-presenting tonight, so we'll try to keep it interesting and not put you to sleep. In any case, so again, I want to provide an overview of these activities as well as kind of giving you an overview of our economy, the business community, how we get our revenue, and why some of these businesses that I'll be highlighting are important to the city in terms of property taxes, capital investment, jobs and payroll investment, as well as, for some of them, sales tax revenue. So I will begin sharing my screen now, and let me know how that works. I've done it before, but it's always interesting, needless to say. All right. Bear with me a moment. Okay, how is that screen looking?
Great.
Good. Is it okay? All right. All right. Again, I think I've already told you what I'm going to tell you, so we'll move on. As you could all imagine, since you lived through the pandemic too, the last year and a half have been literally nonstop business assistance. And economic developers are used to assisting businesses and getting trouble calls and requests for assistance in various things. But to suddenly have all 1,600 businesses reach out or be in crisis at the same time, no economic developer is ever prepared for that. So that was really a challenge. Fortunately, we had our chamber partner, West Sacramento Chamber partner, Denise Domke, and the leadership there alongside us, working with us every day, every week. And I'm also happy to introduce to you tonight Ron Amin with Capital Bowl, the owner of Capital Bowl, who is one of our treasured small businesses and just embedded in the culture of our community. And happy that he was willing to join us tonight to tell us a little bit about what he's been through this year and also how the city's assistance hopefully helped him to survive being closed for, he probably knows exactly how many days and months he was closed for. But I'm going to, Ron, if you have a few minutes, I would like to ask Elijah to go ahead and give us a summary. And again, this is just a summary of all the things that we did for the past year and a half. But after Elijah gives us a quick summary of the city and chamber's business response during COVID, I would like to then ask Elijah to queue up Ron Amin to give us a little kind of a slice of what you went through over the past year. So, Elijah?
Yeah, sure thing. So thank you, Diane. And good evening, everyone. My name is Elijah Ortega. I work closely alongside Diane in the Economic Development Division. And yeah, I mean, so I'd like to just kind of give a summary, like Diane said, of our business response that began way back in March 2020. One of the first things that we did as a division was, identify some of our businesses that were hardest hit, those being our small businesses and primarily our restaurants and breweries. So we launched in coordination with the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce, the West Sac Takeout campaign. So we got together with our public relations team and the team over at the Chamber of Commerce, and we launched that campaign on social media, and we created a running list of takeout options from our local restaurants, including any specials that they were running and their modified hours of business. So that way, all of our residents in the community were aware of ways that they could support their local restaurants and breweries through the tough times when they were closed for everything besides takeout options, dining. So that was kind of one of the very first things that I can remember, like I said, back in March 2020. Additionally, we got a distribution of cloth face masks from the county. And so we, as a division, managed all those masks. And throughout the summer of 2020, we distributed 50,000 masks to our West Sacramento businesses. for use by not only them and their employees, but also for use by any customers that came in that did not have masks at that time that were still very hard to get. Another thing that I'd like to highlight was the surveys and power hours that we held, again, in coordination with the Chamber of Commerce. So we rolled out a number of surveys. Some of you may have received those in your businesses, in your email inboxes. Those were industry targeted. And so we basically got together and held Zoom meetings to check in on our businesses during some of the worst parts of the pandemic. And this outreach kind of helped us identify our needs for our businesses. And it gave us an opportunity to strengthen our contact with our businesses throughout the pandemic when we couldn't go visit them in person. So like I said, we strengthened our connections with our smaller businesses that way, and we developed as a division a more frequent and targeted email outreach strategy. And so we were able to plug in our businesses with general and industry specific resources as they were announced. So we were, getting together and discussing things like the PPP loans and the EIDL loans. And we were discussing all the changes in the county public health guidance and any state resources as they were coming down the pipeline as well. So I would say that one of the positive aspects that came out of, the shift to a digital emphasis and Zoom meetings during the pandemic was that our email campaigns from our division are now seeing a much higher rate of response and interaction. So we're getting more of our business community interacting with us digitally, which I think is great. And our focus is really to maintain that communication with our businesses as we move further into full reopening. So with that, I'd like to invite Ron to speak on maybe some of the topics that are in this slide here. I know that he participated on some of our power hours. And of course, I'd like to invite him to speak on the county and city grants that were administered. So Ron, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Elijah. So what we kind of dealt with throughout this whole pandemic was March 16th was the date that we shut down the first time, was in 2020. And that was a really confusing and weird time. We didn't really know what to expect. First, it was like 2 weeks, and then it just kept going on. But we were hearing rumors that we were going to shut down and whatnot, but I talked to some people with the city, and I was like, hey, are we supposed to be shutting down? And they were like, we haven't got any word yet. And then boom, all of a sudden, March 16th was the date that shut down. And then everyone, no one really knew what was going on. So it was kind of a scary time, honestly. And so we waited it out, and then we opened up again, I believe. I want to say I think it was June. I think we were able to open up, and then a month after that, which was July 3rd, is when we had to shut down again for the second shutdown. After that, we've been pretty much closed until March 25th of this year, when Yolo County finally got into the orange tier. One thing that really, really helped us, actually, the masks that you guys gave out to us, that was pretty awesome, because we were losing out on a lot of customers because they didn't have masks. So like they would come up to the door and be like, sorry, you have to wear a mask. And then they would leave. And then at that time, finding masks was also pretty hard. And just with everything going on, I mean, every penny counted running a business. So the free masks that you guys gave us really helped us as a business, like keeping people inside there, getting people to not leave and come inside safely. That was pretty awesome. Another thing that really, really helped us was the grants that you guys offered. Obviously, all the small business grants, all that stuff. Being shut down, especially when you have a restaurant, even a bar, you waste a lot of food, especially for the amount of time being shut down. We had to throw away pretty much everything. The sodas, everything bad. Everything in the vending machines bad. Pretty much had to start from fresh when we opened back up, and those grants really gave us the cushion to be able to spend money and not worry about that aspect of it after being shut down for a whole year. So that was really awesome. And Elijah, I believe it was you who would email me sometimes and kind of remind me like, hey, there's grants out there, there's this out there. And I want to say thank you for that, because my mind was all over the place. I mainly was focused on when we can reopen. I was starting to fall away from these grants. Like, I didn't know like if like what was like what you needed to qualify and stuff. So Elijah, I do remember you emailing me a couple of times and answering some of my questions. So thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, Chris White's been awesome too. Chris always checked on us. I got to thank her a lot. But yeah, that was pretty much the story. Really hard times, but the city was really able to help us. And I'm really lucky to be in West Sacramento, because I know I talked to pretty much every bowling alley in every other city, and West Sac was really there for us.
Rod, one of the things you mentioned to me is that you were not eligible for the PPP loans because you weren't operational.
Well, we were eligible for it, but there's no good to take that loan if you don't have any employees to pay, because the whole point of the PPP loan is to pay employees, and which is a great loan. But when you're closed, I mean, it's not before that. But we did take advantage of the EIDL loans. We took advantage of those. We took advantage of the grants that you guys gave us. We took advantage of the county that they gave us some reimbursement for like the what are those things? They gave us like reimbursement for the licenses and all that stuff. So I know there was a word for that. They had something for that, but that was really nice of them. So all those stuff really helped us out.
And Ron, you're back open again now. Fully open?
Yes, we are. Yeah, we at a certain capacity, because no, we're not holding birthday parties yet. We're waiting till we at least get to the yellow tier to be able to have more of a capacity, or June 15th looks like the date that a lot of businesses are looking forward to. So yeah, we're just open bowling right now. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had a cut out there. I thought you were done talking. I didn't mean to talk on top of you. We've heard a lot about how businesses are having a hard time getting their employees to come back. So what does your employee situation look like?
Yeah, that's pretty tough. A lot of employees relocated. They moved back to like families' houses and stuff like that in different areas. So a lot of them didn't come back. Some of them did. We were lucky enough to have the main ones come back. So I know a lot of other businesses weren't so lucky, but that is tough. And also hiring right now is, restaurants are having a hard time hiring. So that's one thing that is tough, especially with trying to follow all these guidelines that the county and state are giving us. It's really hard with the limited staff that we have. So we're just doing our best to try to get by, and hopefully we can all look back at this and say we did it.
Fingers crossed for the yellow tier, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So if you know anybody who would like a job that includes free bowling, you know where to send them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ron, for being with us and for hanging in there and for your resilience during the pandemic. Thank you so much for your...
We're lucky to be in West Sacramento.
We're lucky to have you too.
Yeah.
So you're a local treasure and a cultural icon in our city. So
thank you. We appreciate that.
All right. Carry on the good work. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on.
I want to say something about the mask thing. They really help. I got a message from Chamber of Commerce. She called me that these are available. So I took some to my business and other my friends who own the business, and also to our church. So those are really helpful in the time of need. And then later on, I approached Diane, and she also arranged some 50 or 100 for me. So it's really helpful, those tough times, the county and city and chamber, they all come handy to help us community and the businesses to cope up with the shortages of the mask that have you at that time. So thanks, City.
Thank you, JP. Thank you for reminding me, yes, you are a business, as well as a commissioner. I remember when they offered us the masks, Yolo County had hundreds of thousands of these things. And I remember Denise Domke at the chamber saying, 50,000? Yeah, we can get rid of 50,000 masks. and that was no small feat. It was a huge undertaking, but it was really great that the county gave them to the cities, because the county was having trouble reaching everyone and getting them out, and they were very needed. So just capping off the business response piece here, Denise and I were literally having conversations in the evening after working, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and we really felt like the restaurants, we just kept feeling the pain and agony that was going on in the restaurant community. And West Sacramento has worked really, really long and hard to attract quality restaurants and ethnic restaurants. And I remember saying to Denise one night, I don't care if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to get some of that money, that federal money, for our restaurant community. And by golly, she stood right up with me, and we pursued those funds. Even though the city was really struggling with a lot of our costs, I was able to carve out, $150,000 for restaurants. And to comment on what Elijah said, so many businesses were not reading emails. They were just busy trying to survive. They were, so we were sending emails, we have this grant money, and we were having trouble getting the money out by the deadline. We extended the deadline once, and I literally got to the point where I was like, by golly, I'm going to get this money out. I was going masked and going and visiting businesses in the north part of town and really throughout the city. And we even had our transportation staff volunteered. We had a city committee reviewing the grants. And we all went door to door with grant information in English and Spanish. And we were, saying, please apply, we have this money. And at the end of the day, instead of 50 grants of $3,000 each, we did 30 grants, and we gave each of the businesses that qualified and needed the money, we gave them $5,000. So that's what we did with our $150,000. And then the county gave another 60 businesses. Their grant program was a variety of money, depending on what their costs were. So anyway, I really feel like the businesses were very resilient, and that we have passionate business owners, and I think we've been, knock on wood, I think we've done pretty well, West Sacramento, in our businesses surviving. And there have been some closures for sure, but I think we've weathered the storm together pretty well. So, all right. Any questions before I move on? All right, so just a summary here of the campaigns that the chamber leadership put on, both for West Sac Takeout, which was very, very needed for restaurants that could not do anything but takeout, as well as Support Dreams, which was for all the local businesses, including retail and restaurants. All right, moving on to the sort of summary of our business community and our business profile. West Sacramento is jobs rich. Unlike many communities that have more people than jobs, we actually have more jobs than working age people. There's a number of reasons for that. As you see here, though, 56% of our businesses have 9 or less employees. We have a pretty high average wage, and that is largely due both to the preponderance of local government, as well as management of companies and the real estate and rental businesses that we have in the city. Sources vary, but we have about 1,800 businesses according to this data. Our business license data reflects about 1,600 local businesses and about 1,000 home occupations. And our annual growth rate is actually double what the region's growth rate is in terms of jobs. So we've been very successful at getting and keeping businesses. But as you can see here, like Sacramento, because we have the state capital, the largest share of the jobs here are state and local government, followed by transportation and warehousing and wholesale trade, right? Distribution warehouses. So those jobs, there aren't a lot of them, even though you see a lot of jobs at this count here. Typically, transportation and warehousing do not produce a lot of jobs, and they are not highly paid jobs. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in some of the other slides. Location quotient just means that if it's anything over a 1, that we have a greater share than the nation as a whole for that particular industry compared to our total jobs. Again, here you can see that the gray mark is the national average. And as you can see, we have a greater share of government, transportation, warehousing, wholesale trade, which is all these distribution facilities that you see. We have always been that because of our central location in Northern California, as well as our freeway access. So we don't really try to get them, but they come because of our location and freeway access, and because we have a huge industrial development inventory. So other sectors that we feel are ripe for growing, we've targeted manufacturing. We've done pretty well. As you can see there, we almost have reached the national average. Professional and scientific and technical services, also a key cluster that we think has good paying jobs and produces good revenue for the city. Accommodation and food services, we're going to be opening 2 new hotels, quality hotels in the city this year, both the Spring Hill Suites on Reed Avenue, as well as the Home to Suites on West Capitol Avenue. So those are positive signs in that area. Interestingly, management of companies and enterprises, we actually have more than the national share for those, and that is likely due to our headquarters. Companies like NorCal Beverage, Miyamoto, Brown Construction, Rayleigh's, they all have headquarters operation here, so that contributes to that number there. Again, the sectors that we'd like to potentially target as we go forward include professional, scientific, and technical services, finance, insurance, and real estate, and manufacturing. All right, I am going to turn it back over to Elijah to talk about our major employers and his work in conducting outreach to them.
Yeah, thanks, Diane. So our major employers list here was due for an update. And it's important for us as an economic development division to maintain this list because it gives us a snapshot into both who some of our largest public and private employers are. And ultimately, we're able to see where a significant portion of the city's workforce are employed. And it also, as Diane was mentioning previously, it helps us to determine areas of opportunity for growth of our other industry sectors. So this list was developed through direct one-on-one outreach to businesses from both Diane and I, and it was supplemented by our business license data. So the business license data is a tool for us, and we're able to capture a rough estimate of business counts from some of our businesses that way. But really the best way that we can get a read on actual employees is by calling on our businesses and doing direct outreach. So as you can see here, of course, as Diane already mentioned, we employ a large number of government workers with GGS and CalSTRS in our Ziggurat buildings and the CalSTRS building. And of course, the distribution and transportation have always historically been major employers in the city because of our ideal location to the highways and the interstate. And so you can see UPS and FedEx both have a large employee count here and a large distribution presence. But I think one of the things you can also see with our major employers here is you can see our industry clusters. And we'll talk more about it in just a moment, but we can see our food and ag businesses continue to grow and expand their facilities and employee numbers. So we see UNFI and Bayer and Kepe Organic are pretty high on the list. And as we touched on previously, we're able to see our opportunities for future growth in our technology and science-based businesses. So you can see Tomra, DXC Technology, IDEX Laboratories. And so as Diane already mentioned, our focus kind of looking into the future is to see our technology and some of our clean tech and energy and advanced manufacturing businesses climb up on this list.
Elijah, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm surprised that Amazon is not on this list with all their 2 locations here. Are there just not that many humans working there?
So we discussed that. Diane, do you want to take that?
You're on mute, Diane.
On mute,
Yes. When I'm sharing screen, I can't see my controls. Anyway, yeah, Amazon, I will be professional, but I will simply say that Amazon uses third-party logistics providers, and so they don't actually employ the majority of those people driving around the city at high speed. Yeah, they are not a large employer. They just have a large impact on our community. And the good news is that they have activated several new distribution locations in Elk Grove, Roseville, and Sacramento. So a lot of the capacity and volume they were producing out of Riverside Center, as well as Southport, should be reducing. But yes, they definitely have an impact. And unfortunately, the financial benefit is very limited.
Diane, is that the same for Postmates or the food delivery companies? Do they not count towards West Sacramento employment?
Correct. Unless they're employed by a company that is domiciled in the city, those jobs are not jobs that are, quote, in West Sacramento.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. Moving on. Any other questions? Okay. There we go. All right. Business recruitment, the fun stuff. This is, the highlights really are that, as you can imagine, clean technology, clean fuels, alternative energy, and transportation are targets of the state of California for obvious reasons, as well as the city now with our climate action framework, climate action plan, and as well as the fact that most of our urban infill areas, we are, targeting greenhouse gas reductions. So we've oriented this target list a little bit, reoriented recently. Food and beverage manufacturing has always been a target because, as I said, the property tax and the investment, the capital investment, the jobs, as well as the PR. It's always, it's something that we can be proud of, that these food products are produced here. Go Girl is produced here. Nippon Shokin sauces are produced here that are supplied to grocery stores. So it's sort of a point of pride. But the sustainable transportation is really a growing industry, as you can imagine. And Mikuni Color is a company that actually the lead came to us from one of our other Japanese companies. And it's not a very sexy product, but it is in fact an electric vehicle component that goes in the Tesla batteries. So sustainable, maybe not, but the EV vehicle, EV industry is here to stay, as evidenced by all the number of vehicles on the road. And this company would have located to Reno were it not for the assistance and facilitation that our department provided to them. And they've invested about $10 million in a leased building in West Sacramento. So it does produce some property tax for us. The California Fuel Cell Partnership has been here forever, it seems like. And the good news is that these vehicles are on the road, and that's really what the partnership was about, was to demonstrate that this hydrogen fuel cell technology could be effective in the real world. And I know that Chris is very involved in that industry. And then when Iwatani built the hydrogen fueling station on South River Road, we actually had a huge presence of GoBiz staff. The state of California has a very, very large program and funding for encouraging additional clean fuel vehicles as well as that technology. So that is something that we work hand in hand with them. We're recently getting inquiries from hydrogen-related companies, so that's a positive growth industry for us. Plygem Windows was also, both of these companies, Hunter Douglas, the window covering, and Plygem Windows, were companies that we recruited. We worked with site selectors to bring those businesses here. Plygem is growing and expanding. Hunter Douglas was hit hard, as you can imagine, by the pandemic. And then recently, of course, Better Meat Company was attracted to the city of West Sacramento, and we'll hear a little bit more about that later. Bayer Crop Science bought a building years ago and invested a lot. They're also one of our top property owners in the city. And then clean tech is a all-encompassing term, but it also, there is actually an effort in the region here. Clean Start is a kind of an accelerator for clean technology businesses in Sacramento, and so we have worked with them in the past. Biomedical and life sciences, we have a small cluster. Beckman Coulter's been here. Gemini Bioproducts recently expanded. And so these are all, good, clean industries that have well-paying jobs, generally speaking, and they have a significant private investment that generates into property tax and or sales tax for the city. I can't see hands, so if anyone does have a question, if someone could give me a cue, that would be good. We had a brand that we created a few years ago, and we don't use it a lot anymore, but we really wanted to tout the food and beverage cluster, and so as you can see, we have some pretty large corporations here, of course, led by Raley's, as well as NorCal Beverage, both headquartered here. Tony's Fine Foods is a very large company distributing, I don't even know, 400,000 different products up and down the West Coast. And Farm Fresh to You has a distribution center here. And United Bakery was a company that we assisted when they were a very tiny bakery. We gave them a business loan. The city had a business loan program that was tied to job creation. And so United Bakery actually acquired a building recently and invested a substantial amount of money in retooling that building to produce breadsticks and baked bread and other products that you can buy at your grocery store. You can see them at Raley's. They're in numerous other grocery stores. Okay, moving on. So business assistance. This is what we do, really, and it encapsulates everything that we do, right? Whether it's recruiting a business, retaining a business, or assisting a small business. This is really what we do all day long. We get inquiries from people who are starting businesses. We get inquiries from brokers and developers, from GoBiz, from Greater Sacramento, and then sometimes businesses themselves. We don't work on every business. Many businesses don't even know that we have an economic development department. So one of our other components is really to market and promote the city's economic development and housing department. But we do have a lot to offer. We know the city, we know the real estate, we know where the land and the buildings are, and we know we have a database of properties and buildings that we can help them find. We know about grants and investment incentives, both at the state and local level. And PG&E, believe it or not, actually has an economic development rate for companies that are expanding or locating into California. We work a lot on the business license side and also with permits because, as you can imagine, California is extremely highly regulated. So businesses that want to locate, and if they have to do any kind of construction at all, it's very complicated and very time consuming, even though the city has a very, very effective streamlined building permitting process. We're very busy right now, and so the more busy they are, the longer it takes and the more facilitation we get requested to provide. We also try to connect businesses with local goods and suppliers, and the reason for that, as many of you know, you have businesses, the local tax dollars stay in the community when you buy locally, and so we try to encourage our bigger businesses to do that as well. There are training and hiring grants and assistance both through Yolo County and through the state of California. This slide is just highlighting some of the more notable expansions that have occurred recently that some of which we've been involved in, and others. NorCal Beverage is very well connected, obviously, so they had a good developer. So Gemini Bioproducts, they make the food for cellular diagnostic work. So they actually make the food for cellular analysis and cell production for therapies, vaccine and cancer therapies. So that's also another pretty high value facility. And then, of course, you probably read in the news, Origin Materials was a company that literally came to us when they had 2 people and they needed help getting a lab set up, and we helped them do that. And then now they're, I think, the region's first billion-dollar company. They will replace plastic bottles with a biomass-produced product that PepsiCo and Mitsubishi and a lot of very, very, very large companies are very interested in having a sustainable bottle, right? We've all heard about how terrible those plastic water bottles are, and they're made with petroleum products. So this is a really exciting technology that's finally getting great traction and is now going to be a publicly traded company. So this is how it can begin, right? We never know. Someone asks for our help. It might be a very small business. It might be somebody that is going to be the next Blockbuster in terms of, a company like Origin Materials. So that's why we really try, I really take pride in helping, the mom and pops, helping a small business owner. They're all important, and we try to give the same level of service to the small business owners that we give to the larger companies as well. Better Meat Company. So one of the most common questions we get in economic development is, we heard there were grants for new businesses in West Sacramento. Can you help me get one of those? And then, of course, we say, well, we don't really have grants, but we will give you the best business assistance services in the region, and we'll make sure that everything happens quickly and easily, and we'll make it easy for you. So it's kind of a tap dance that we do, but Better Meat is one of those companies that said, we want to come to the city. This is what we need. We want to know if you have incentives, right? And to which we don't. We have historically not provided those kinds of incentives. But we are able to, through our service model, really attract and retain those businesses in West Sacramento. So I only put this up here just because it's an example of what we're trying to do, right? This is why we get up in the morning, is to feel like we really helped someone, right? And we don't get many thank yous, as Elijah will tell you. We don't get many thank yous, but when we do get one, we really take it to heart. So they're finally opening after a year and a half of building their production facility. They're finally opening on June 8th, and they've invited Mayor Guerrero to stop by and make remarks. So that's a great success story there. So I want to turn a little bit of attention now to, these young startups. And I know many of you on the commission are involved in businesses or help businesses get started, either on the legal or financial side. This is really an exciting area, and it's really, I think, ripe for more development. So Hamama is actually a company that was referred to us by Greater Sacramento. They were in the Bay Area. And again, it was a young company, venture funded, and they needed to grow. They needed to expand their facility because their product was taking off. And if you've ever gotten the product, they literally send you these quilts and you water them, and the next thing you know, you have, fresh microgreens for dinner. So it's really a very cool technology. Molecular Matrix is a company, again, that came to us, literally an invention from a PhD at UC Davis, who had invented a bone graft product that is completely natural. So instead of, having a synthetic bone graft product, they actually invented this all natural, all from substance found in the body. And of course, the pandemic really, as you know, all of the elective surgeries were postponed. So this company, scrappy, resilient company led by a man named Charles Lee, who will be at State of the City, by the way, he had to pivot. And they pivoted. They have a molecular lab here in town, and they are now doing testing. So if you need a quick COVID test, they have 3 drive-through locations, and they are, they're high-quality company. Really, really had to pivot and survive the pandemic. But these are examples of the kinds of companies that we would like West Sacramento to be known for, more so than our transportation and warehousing industry. That's the past. So where are we going in the future? What's our strategy now? What kinds of targets do we need to really focus on, and what do they need in order to really get them over in West Sacramento? Because it's very competitive. There are 20 cities in the region, and all of them want these great companies. And some of them have, money to hand out, and hand out money to companies, which we've never really been, keen on. But a little bit of assistance can go a long way in really getting a company to come over. Again, just quickly summarizing Better Meat Company, about them. They have contracts with Purdue and other major companies. This is going to become, again, because of the processes that are involved in the production of, animal protein, more and more. In fact, I was just reading in the UK, they're protesting at McDonald's. They're stopping the meat deliveries to McDonald's in the UK because of its environmental, footprint. And so more and more companies are trying to figure out, what is a better way to stay healthy and honestly to feed the planet. The only way to feed the planet is really to have these other products. Applied Spectra is another really exciting company that came out of Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and again, a Greater Sacramento referral. They relocated their headquarters from Fremont, and they actually produce these instruments here that they're standing next to that actually use laser beam pulses to break down and analyze the sample. It's like a spectroscope. They actually will report the chemical composition of the different samples. They're doing solar panels, they're doing chips, computer chips, and their market is unlimited. They have facilities in Australia, China, that, this product is really going to take off. And this company, so this is a good example. This company was going to go to Rancho Cordova, and Greater Sacramento Economic Council introduced me to them. They said, well, you know, Rancho Cordova is going to give us $100,000 to locate there. And I said, well, we don't really have that program, but we will make sure that we assist you every step of the way. We'll get you open as soon as possible. And at the time, I had taken this proposed business assistance program to the commission in 2019, in early 2019. I think it was an attachment in your packet. But I told them we're considering adopting an incentive like this, but we don't have one right now. So you'll have to make your decision. But I got a call from a broker who said, well, you know, that building in Rancho Cordova, the reason they need $100,000 is because it's very rough and they need to do $100,000 worth of work to it. The building in West Sacramento, which is in Riverside Center, was completely already built out as office. So they saved some money by just moving into this building instead of retrofitting that building in Rancho Cordova. But it was very close. I mean, they should have gone to Rancho Cordova, except again, because of my broker contacts and somebody called and said, I'd called them and they said, hey, they can go and West Sacramento is going to be cheaper for them. So I was able to sell them on coming to West Sacramento, and that's really the point that I want to leave you with. I didn't have the incentive, but I was able to sell them to come to West Sacramento anyway. But they do need to expand, and it's, the cost of creating a production facility and a headquarters, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars per square foot, and this company has 13,000 square feet, I think it is. So this is a company that probably won't stay in West Sacramento when they need to grow, because they'll be looking for capital, and they're still privately funded. So that's just something to keep in mind as we, develop our strategy going forward. All right, now the item you've all been waiting for, inclusive economic development. Before I go on, this is really a different topic. Are there any comments or questions, or would you like me to stop talking now? All right, hearing none.
To go back to the last company, is there anything that can be done to keep them here?
Well, besides money?
Besides money.
Yeah. So this goes to that customer service piece that I talked about, right? It's not just economic development, right? It's the building department, it's the fire department that goes in and inspects them every year. It's the utility department that they interact with whenever they, have a question or a problem. So it's really about, how well can we treat them and how welcome will they feel, and will they be able to get the things they need here? For example, this company is hiring right now, and they're hiring chemical engineers and software technicians, and because these machines have a remote sensing piece and they have a lot of computer, associated computer programs. So it goes to that talent piece, right? Can they find the workforce they need here? They're not in the Bay Area, so that's a difference right there. We don't have the engineers and the software engineers that you might have in the Bay Area. So this is a company that needs help, and I've been really hand-holding them a lot lately. I've invited them to State of the City. They will be there. But he again reminded me, Diane, we need to expand again, and we're going to need capital to do that. We have to build out more manufacturing, facilities. We have to. So it would be easier if we had an incentive program, and the incentive program could be calibrated to, for example, jobs. It could be calibrated to that person living in the city as opposed to living somewhere else. I talked the CEO into living in West Sacramento. He bought a home in West Sacramento because I told him that any incentive program that we might have would be a key component. We would want you to live in the city and help us make the city better. And he bought it. He said, okay, I'm down with that. I'll do that. So this is a company, yeah, I mean, a small incentive program would go a long way. And again, I would really prefer not to do that. But on the other hand, it can be very strategic, and it can be very instrumental in continuing to build our tech sector. So it's something, to think about. And that's really the only reason, I don't expect any, answers from you, but I just wanted to leave you with, that seed and kind of think about it. Your input is important to us developing a strategy. For example, we might have a strategy to build lab space using our Measure G or other tools that we might have at our disposal. So there could be other approaches that we could use where we wouldn't be giving money to a company, but we might help them with some of their facility improvements, because there would be a return on every dollar of that investment that would go into the city's property tax fund.
Well, it seems like if Sac State has an engineering program and UC Davis also has an engineering program, that there's probably a lot of people that have these backgrounds that we're looking for. Is the benefit that the city would get less than what the cost of an incentive program would be?
We can do those calculations. Yeah, I mean, that's the only way we would give an incentive, is we would calculate, and the program would be structured in a way that there would have to be a demonstrated return on investment of either property tax revenue, sales tax revenue, and this is a point of sale. These instruments are $100,000 or $200,000 a piece. So when they're sold from the headquarters, West Sacramento gets the sales tax from those sales. But we can do a calculation. We could structure a program, and I think Rancho Cordova did theirs this way. They said $5,000 per job, but the jobs have to pay over a certain wage, and you have to be generating additional investment or property tax or other revenue to the city in order to be eligible. So yes, we would only use an incentive if we knew that the return on investment was going to be, 5x or 10x.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. This is the last slide. Yay. This is a really important topic, though, and it's an important topic for the city for a number of reasons. One, because we do have a significant number of residents living in poverty, and they traditionally don't, the economic development that we're doing does not necessarily reach them, and so that's why you see here a lot of the things that we are doing, right? We have the West Sacramento Home Run, where we've improved access to universal preschool and good quality education for a lot, made it free, basically. Universal preschool, the Home Run program, guaranteed access into the higher education. These are all really important determinants for improving, economic mobility for our community and for our residents. The same with affordable housing, right? Because we have a substantial housing program, as you know. You've heard about that. You've heard about our CDBG investments in some of these areas where we're building, parks and trails and, extending the Riverwalk and improving the utility systems there. These are all things that improve quality of life and improve, same with the mobility, right? Transit, VIA and transit, the mobility action plan that's being done right now is to improve our residents' ability to have access to better economic mobility. So all of these things really go to addressing that. But we do have a high poverty rate, especially, for a lot of the areas that are older in town, where there's older housing. So we have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of infrastructure that we have to build, which is why we have, after the abolishment of redevelopment, why we created Measure G and the EIFD. We voted that in because we said, we want to keep improving our community. We have a lot of quality of life things to build. And so some of the things that we've done are great and are addressing those needs. Other things perhaps could be done. And I really am seeking your input, your comments, and your thoughts. And it doesn't have to be just tonight, obviously. We're going to be coming back to you with staff's suggestions and recommendations for focusing on one or two particular items that we can move the needle on, so to speak. But some of the things we have not done, we haven't done hiring incentives, we have not done skills training. We could do an apprenticeship program. It could be, for example, what they're doing in Sacramento. They're doing this digital upskilling, where they literally took applications for people that didn't have college backgrounds, but they trained them to get a Google certificate or a Salesforce certificate. And by and large, those individuals are now working in higher wage jobs. They're working in jobs that are paying above the average wage in Sacramento. So those things can move the needle for people who were potentially living in poverty or underskilled or unskilled in service industries or things of that nature. It could be soft skills. It could be computer literacy. It could be, like I said, we had years ago, and I don't know if Raul or Katie remember this, but we had a construction training program. And as many of you know, construction jobs pay quite well right now. And you could work with local trades and develop an apprenticeship program whereby individuals that were in, a lower paying job or didn't have college could go into this apprenticeship program and really improve their economic self-sufficiency, and pairing that with housing and affordable housing and housing rehab and some of these other programs. We've done micro enterprise training, and we do have an RFP that is out on the street now for micro enterprise training classes. So we will be getting that going this summer, and that's funded by the CDBG program that you heard about earlier this year. And then the entrepreneurship piece, we haven't gotten very involved, but we actually could partner with other entrepreneurship organizations in the region or in the state, or national programs for that matter, to really ramp up our involvement in that piece. And then lastly, just Measure End is a source of funding for that, as well as the city's economic development and housing funds. And that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to turn it over to Ms. Jacobson, or if you have questions or comments, happy to take those as well. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Diane. Question from Commissioner Sane.
No, I just want to thank Diane for the information and what goes on behind the scenes to add economic benefits for the city as well as the new businesses. And so it's very refreshing, and thanks for your efforts to keep the city going and recruiting the business and helping the business, like Ron explained, how much help he got to get back on feet. So it was really, really nice to get all the information. Thanks.
Thank you. And
Diane?
Yes, sir.
This is Commissioner Guerra. I had a quick question. Is there anything that we have that helps match up West Sacramento residents who are in need of a job with West Sac businesses to match up what they're qualified for and help them get jobs here in West Sac?
There are, but it's done through the Yolo County Health and Human Services. We do also have the home run program that does the internships, but it's only summer internships. That's a really good question. Thank you for that. So Yolo County receives federal funding from the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act to, in fact, match up West Sacramento residents that are unemployed or underemployed with jobs in the entire county, actually. But they have a whole staff there, but it's married to, the function is married to the Health and Human Services Department, so they work hand in hand. But we don't have a program per se, other than our efforts. When we know somebody is hiring, we do try to promote that. In fact, Elijah and I are working on the website, and we're actually going to have a feature on our website that says hiring now. But there isn't a formal program that I'm aware of, unless Katie is or Elijah is. I'm not aware of a formal program that actually matches up residents to businesses that are hiring. That would be a great engagement piece.
You know, Diane, I was thinking a little bit about that too, and particularly with what Dan said about the people coming out of college for these jobs. You know, my company hires engineers too, not the same type of engineers, but almost everybody we hire is not fresh out of college. We look for several years worth of experience. And I think that's where we fall short, is those students that are graduating from UC Davis and Sac State are leaving our city to go get their first job. So it seems like there's something we need to do to, like an apprenticeship program, like a short-term internship program, to help these highly scientific businesses bring in somebody fresh out of school to keep them here. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the answer to that.
That's okay. It's our job to get you the answers. I like that. These are good comments, because I know that there's another piece that the city is doing. We got a Bloomberg Innovation grant, or their in-kind services, and they're actually looking at how do we engage with our businesses. It's civic engagement. It's how do we better engage with our businesses for inclusive economic development. And one of the things that they're looking at is, you know, how do we engage with them first of all, right? Like, what's a better way? Because as Elijah pointed out, emails and phone calls and all those things, they're great, but they're not efficient, right? We need smarter ways to engage with our businesses, especially those that are growing the kinds of jobs that we would like to match up with our youth, right? So more to come on that, on the inclusive topic.
You know, I think too is businesses really look more at diversity and equity and how they hire a more diverse workforce. That for many jobs, a college degree has become the threshold to get your application in. And in some places, it's a master's degree to even get started. But there are many folks who would have gotten that experience and knowledge by working, and they may not have the degree. So I think the more that we can identify opportunities to work with businesses and really talk about diversity. Diversity comes from not penalizing people who cannot afford to go to college.
Yeah, and you know, the home run internship program, businesses are always interested, but then when you tell them it's only 8 weeks for the summer, I see them kind of go, you know.
Yeah, and a high school student who needs a lot of supervision.
Yeah. But what if we could just do a home run? What if we could do a similar program but make it for a different demographic, right? And make it for a longer period of time. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you so much for your attention and for your comments, and I welcome your other feedback and inquiries. You know, you have my email. The other thing I would invite you to do is we have River Cats tickets to every game, and they can be used for economic development. So if you or your friends or family would like to host a business or a consultant or a business that you would like to locate in the city, those tickets are available for those purposes. And I or Elijah can join you or not. So that's another way that you can continue to be economic ambassadors to our city.
One of the things that we talked about several years ago too was, if you know somebody who is telecommuting to a job that is somewhere else, That's the first person to talk to about wouldn't they like to have their office in this city? And how can we get them to move that business? So if you know somebody who's telecommuting to a job in LA or San Francisco or Oakland, right there.
Yeah. Yep. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. And I think we are now over to Katie.
Good evening, Chair and Commission members. I am going to start a screen share for my presentation. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
So, good evening. The agenda report that was included in your package provided the Commission with some background on the various funds for which the department creates investment strategies and plans and recommendations. These investments are analyzed and viewed through two primary lenses. The first is improving property sales and TOT tax and job growth to make investments that sustain and grow long-term economic health for the city. The second lens is investing to effectuate a shift towards sustainable, smart growth development patterns in our city, and also with that focuses on our urban infill and our riverfront districts. So these are primarily tax increment capture funds and community facilities financing district funds, which I identified and defined in the report. So I wanted to provide you this update on those projects and the progress. Those projects that I'm going to show you tonight are all leveraged or catalyzed by investments of the city. And I want to start off with the first project is the dock. And we were, this dock just opened in May and we were unable to do a ribbon cutting or any kind of celebration as planned due to the pandemic. So the department went ahead and created a video to give the public information about the project. And so Nubi's gonna play that video for you to start this off.
Okay, I'm just about to share my screen. Can you see the screen?
No, we just
see
the slide.
My apologies. How about now?
Yeah, you have to just back it up to play from the beginning.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, and let me make sure that the sound is being okay.
West Sacramento is proud to present a beautiful new dock for boaters on the Sacramento River. It serves as a gateway to West Sacramento's best dining, retail, art, and culture. It's on the beautiful Riverwalk, where you can take in nature, the skylines, and it's even an easy stroll to a Rivercats game. To commemorate the new docks, the city worked with British artist Joshua Sofair to create a landmark that would bind the two cities on the river.
This scheme comes from an established connection between West Sacramento and Sacramento so that people have a sense that they're in one location rather than being in two separate cities. And the challenge for the project was to find an idea that would do that by essentially offering the same opportunity on both sides of the river. We're trying to connect the two cities together. River Crossing, I want to communicate with you, was the opportunity for people in Sacramento and West Sacramento to nominate someone to become the name of the dock in their city. So this project is trying to kind of turn around the paradigm whereby public space is named after the rich or the great and the good, and name public space after people that we can connect with perhaps more easily. The stories that are otherwise hidden of people that are important in Sacramento and West Sacramento. The way in which the new names of the dock are commemorated are in large-scale light box installation that spell out the names using maritime signals. So the two names of the grandmothers, the women that have been selected as the names of the new dock, are signaling across the river to each other with the message of the name of the dock.
And I started reading about this concept of extraordinary people among the ordinary, and I immediately thought of my grandmother. It makes me so proud to be from Sacramento. It makes me so proud that there are so many other amazing stories worth telling. I just feel a huge responsibility to continue the legacy that my grandmother started. As her ear co-pilot, I helped deliver supplies to farm worker families and played with the children at each stop along our route. I was too young to comprehend the tears in their mother's eyes when we left. Gratitude, relief, and a silent, unspeakable understanding. She helped establish child care centers for the children of migrant farm workers in parts of Yolo and Sacramento counties. She secured funding for the centers, which provided meals, recreation, and educational curriculum.
I'm just so overjoyed and overwhelmed with emotion, and it would have been perfect for her. She was a 5'1", 5'2" lady with a personality as big as that, as bright as that, with a heart that was of the same stature.
This is an honorable moment for us to be able to recognize the contributions of my grandmother and to be able to ground ourselves here in West Sacramento in a way that honors the river as well. La Mama Hetenesh. In East Africa, the Nile River has always been a point of friendship. Wherever the river runs, the people would gather. The river is where people would take a break, share their secrets, and pour their stories into a vessel that will never overflow. The Hetenesh was my river in a way that she carried my family through infinite journeys and provided a fluid space for communal storytelling. Hetenesh lived in a small home in West Sacramento and passed away in 2016. She was a stream of hope for her mother and continues to provide solace wherever she flows.
If our mother was here, really, she would be so much honored, humbled, and with all dignity and humility, she would cry. She always flows with this river.
Thank you. Let me get back to share screen here. So the next project that I wanted to talk to you about is called 440 West. It's in the Washington district. This is a private development project by a developer, Black Pine. This is the first new investment or development west of 5th Street that the city's seen in about 20 years. It's market rate for sale townhomes, very high quality residential product, very dense, surrounding a new neighborhood park that will front on E Street. This new investment happened due to the city's focus on investing in new smart growth development in this neighborhood, which had been blighted and distressed prior to 2011. So the council adopted a sustainable community strategy for the area in early 2015, which was funded by HUD, federal HUD. And then in 2015, we were awarded a National Endowment for the Arts grant for public art and an arts plan for the district, which was adopted in 2019. And then there are 2 art installations that were created as a result of these efforts. So this is just another graphic depicting the homes that will be built and the general vicinity of these homes in the Washington area and the location of the park fronting E Street. Again, this project was catalyzed by the Climate Investment Grant we were awarded in 2016. That built upon our efforts with the HUD Community Sustainable Strategy. We took that, we applied for a state climate investment fund grant to install new walkability infrastructure to support these sustainable, responsible densities. And Black Pine, again, we're pleased to have them because they're really a well-known quality developer. They are the developers of the Creamery, which you may know of, or Curtis Park Village. This is just a graphic of the park. The park will include an arts element as a feature element at the opening, but this will be the first and only neighborhood park that has been developed in the Washington district. And it's placed along East Street because East Street was envisioned in our planning to be sort of a garden street with art icons along it that lead from the interior space into the river. This is an affordable housing project that the city is developing, and we hope that this will be able to initiate construction in about a year. Raul's been very involved in partnering and negotiating and being a co-developer of this project. It's the second phase of West Gateway Place, which is on Tower Bridge Gateway. Jamboree is the developer, and the city is providing the gap funding to create feasibility for the project. That funding comes from Housing Trust Fund, which receives in lieu fee revenues, as well as funding for the state. And the in lieu fee housing revenues are fees that by our ordinance, developers are allowed to pay when it's not feasible for them to create the units within the project. This is just another graphic or rendering of what that design will look like. It's really a very beautiful design done by a well-known architect out of San Francisco. And as you can see, it's designed around the primacy of activating the public realm and engaging with the streetscape. This is a project that we're doing in partnership with Mercy. Again, it was leveraged with our Housing Trust Fund, gap financing, but primarily built by other funding sources and run by Mercy Housing. And this is 85 units for residents that are at risk of homelessness. And this project includes supportive services to those residents. Relacus Architecture designed the project, and the project also will contribute to the revitalization of West Capitol Avenue, and it is expected to open in September. Here's another project that are investments into infrastructure and walkability improvements in Washington has catalyzed. This is called the KIND Project. It's located on F Street. It's a brand new quality residential development. And it located or was attracted to come into this area because of the new frontage and lighting and landscaping and other improvements and enhancements that had been done in the district. And one thing that's hard when you're in my business is that you wouldn't know it, but there's $10 million of improvements that are underground that you cannot see. So I'm glad that we were able to do some frontage and street lights and walkability improvements in the district because they do symbolize the city's priority for creating smart growth development here. But what's more important to investors in the development community is that there's $10 million invested in upsizing and repairing and rehabbing and replacing all of the underground infrastructure, which was not sized for dense development. And it was not, it hadn't been rehabbed since the 1950s. So this is a view of the project from F Street. These are micro units. It's an innovative new type of housing product that we haven't seen before in the city. So we're particularly excited about it. And Diane was actually the project manager and lead for this. And she got it over to the finish line with the development agreement. It's 148 micro units, which are rent restricted, but the rent restriction is a completely new mechanism that we evolved here. So in this case, the developer came to the city with a vision for building a new housing product that was attainable by design. And that means that they're creating it at a cost point that they can keep the rents very affordable. And so in exchange for that, the developer asked the city to have some recalibration of our impact fees since these were micro units and had less impacts. And so the developer has agreed to restrict rents to 125 of these units for 10 years by contract. In addition, there are 23 traditional covenant restricted units in the project. So again, I just want to, I know it gets complicated when we talk about these regulatory schemes, but we're very excited about it because it's a brand new way of bringing workforce housing and true affordability to the community. And there's no income eligibility requirements at all on these units. So they're open to the public and available to anyone to rent. This is a very landmark project that is called the River One Development Project. It's a mixed use project. It's very exciting. It's going to change the face of our riverfront. It's going to change the face of the front door of the city. It's 55 riverfront condo flats and approximately 200 room boutique hotel. These two uses share the amenities in the center, and it's being developed by a partnership of Michael Teal and Mark Friedman. And this is one of the most valuable and iconic infill sites in Northern California. So we're very pleased that we're able to capture or secure or attract investment that is doing something of this nature, and it's really a game changer. It's the first true riverfront residential project that the city has seen. And this was intended to be under construction about a year ago. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, their financing was frozen. And so they were very active during the pandemic, and they have secured new financing, which they're thrilled about. And they are moving the project forward now. They're in for a building permit. We're finishing up all of our reviews that the city needs to do. We've finished, their entitlements are completed. And so we expect to see this under construction soon. This is an infrastructure project in the Washington area, and try to orient you. So this is the historic I Street Bridge where my marker is. So what we're doing with this project is extending hardscape underneath the bridge and then all along the crown of the levee between the historic I Street Bridge and the Broderick boat ramp. And in addition to that, we're doing, have been overly sensitive. We're doing, okay, I'm not gonna move my marker. We're doing, if you move your eyes up to the top, you'll see that we're doing new improvements to create safe ADA accessible crossing of the track for bicycles and pedestrians at 3rd and D Street. And then we'll be doing all new frontage and street lighting along the west side of 3rd Street there, and then around the corner on C Street between 5th and 3rd, we're widening it. We're putting in a dedicated bike facility and new lighting and sidewalk. And if you can see on the screen, the line work shows you that the new widened and bike accessible investment and infrastructure facilities will be extended seamlessly then on up to the new replacement I Street Bridge, which will land on the other side of the river in the rail yards in Sacramento. So you can kind of see the line work of where that new bridge is going to be located. This project also includes a public art installation. And the public art is to take this old communications tower that was decertified by Yolo County, and the city recently acquired it in order to transform it into a public art installation. So this particular public art installation was approved by council as part of the Washington Art Plan, was funded by the National Endowment for the Arts grant, and then council approved that arts plan in 2019. So that arts plan essentially establishes locations and the types of public art installations that are intended to encourage walking and biking trips and to serve as landmark beacons to let the community and the public know where trails and walking facilities and biking facilities are located. So the type of light and sculptural elements that I use to sort of depict example light sculptures in other towns are not really representative of what we're looking for here, because we are having to respect the fact that we're up against a riparian habitat and up against residential development. So this particular art installation will be a combination of sculptural and light elements, with the light mostly focused at the top. And we've gotten, we're in the process now of receiving, we've invited specific artists with this expertise, and we're getting in 3 to 4 proposals, and we're really excited about the artists' interest. This is another infrastructure investment in the Bridge District, and just to try to orient you, because I know it's not easy with these graphics, is the freeway, Highway 50 Pioneer Bridge elevated structure is in the middle. And we're taking the riverfront street, which goes along the riverfront in the Bridge District, right in front of the barn, which you may be familiar with, taking it all the way down and underneath the freeway and down along the first parcel there. We were going to take the street all the way to connect it into 15th. However, because of the Broadway Bridge still being under design and consideration and the work we're doing in Pioneer Bluff Master Plan, we're not sure that we want that street to connect in the same location we originally envisioned. So we're deciding to stop the street here. And then on 5th Street for now, we'll come back and connect it. But then on 5th Street, we're doing a widening of 5th Street, and we're installing on the east side a separated 2-way bicycle track and separated pedestrian facilities. So this particular area has been a real problem area for our city, and it's probably the one area that we received the most complaints and requests for the city to do something about and resolve and address, because it's very unsafe for the residents coming from the south and coming from the Park Street neighborhoods to access our riverfront and get to the amenities like the Riverwalk and the barn, because it's so unsafe crossing under that freeway. So I'm really pleased to be able to let you know this is done. It's going out to bid this month, and it will be under construction soon, and it will be a much improved facility and way for our community to access the riverfront from these other areas. And then just to point out that we got a shout out in Sacktown magazine for our Barge Canal Trail is one of the best hikes in the region. And that was also a project that the community investment manager, Katie Yancey, took lead on, got the financing pulled together and the design as well. And that concludes my presentation. And I'll open it up if anyone has any questions or comments.
Oftentimes it looks to, if you're a resident and you look at these things and you think nothing's happening, everything's standing still, why aren't we building stuff? So that it just shows you how much stuff is really going on, and to realize how long it takes too. Katie, I've been on the commission long enough that I can remember talking about those $10 million of sewer and water that are underneath the road now. And, it just takes time to get it all in place so that the investors will come.
Very true. The dock alone was, I think, 5 years of permitting and environmental and design. So these projects do take a lot of time, but they're worth doing right, because they definitely we've really seen that they create the return that we were looking for. So.
Commissioners, any questions, any comments? Well, thank you very much, Katie. So let's move on to agenda item number 5, requests and comments from the commissioners. Ernie, I see you're off mute.
Yeah, I guess I was just going to ask what are requested comments? Are they different than just questions that we have on the presentations, or what are requested comments?
I can take that. I mean, requested comments would just simply be things that you might like to request that staff give you more information on, or it's a presentation or a policy issue that is in the commission's purview that you would like to see a presentation on in the future. Just more general comments and feedback and direction to our department as the staff to your commission. And just to make sure we're providing you the information that you are interested in.
Understood. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Singh. So just a question, if we have a request information or we need a copy of the presentation or who should we reach out to? To you, Katie, or?
So you would reach out through Nuvi. So Nuvi is your staff. She's the clerk to the commission. So she's the one that you would communicate with about your scheduling, availability, things like that. But also, if you want to let the department know about areas of interest you have, or just questions that you have about something you're driving around and you see and you don't get it. I mean, anything really. That's what Nuvi's role is with the commission, as your staff, to make sure that you're supported.
And the last thing is the presentation you did and the Diane you did. Can we have a copy of that, soft copy of email to us?
You want a PDF copy email?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. It was a good presentation, and thanks for all the information, and it's moving along.
Yeah, very, very good presentation. Thank you for that. I guess one thing I would like to see is regarding homelessness, and specifically, what are we doing to address homelessness? What resources are being made available? I mean, we talked about, I think it was the Mercy Project. So that's one big part of it, but anything else, what are available resources and what's being done to address, the homeless issue?
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Staff updates. You both just gave us big updates.
I have nothing more to add in terms of staff updates.
Diane, did you want to say anything about State of the City? You mentioned it a couple of times.
Yes, you read my mind. I would like to say, please go to State of the City and please call us or email us for River Cats tickets so you can do more economic development work for us. I think we emailed you all and invited you to attend. And so if you haven't received a reply from us that you have tickets, please email myself or Elijah and make sure that we have tickets for you, because we've already provided our list to the chamber.
Well, I was hoping Isaiah would be on here today, since he was on Wheel of Fortune since the last time we had a meeting.
Okay. I'll let Raul take that one.
Was he? I didn't know that.
Yes, my parents texted me to say there's someone from West Sacramento on, and I turned it on and I was like, oh my gosh, he's on our committee.
Raul, anything to say about that?
Good evening, Commissioner. Not really, no. I mean, other than I know that he had a great time. You know, we were all very happy for him that he was on Wheel of Fortune, but you know, it was an experience. He really enjoyed it.
Well, that's awesome. I have a feeling a magazine interview is in his near future. Only I knew the person who interviewed everybody and wrote the magazine, which for those of you who don't know is me. So I hear a magazine interview in our near future. All right, with further staff updates going once? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Commissioner Guerra. I make a motion that we adjourn.
And a second, please.
This is Commissioner Singh. I second the motion.
And Newbie, do we need a roll call for this one? Yes, Diane shaking her head.
Yes, please. Okay. Commissioner Dawson.
We seem to have lost him.
Okay. Commissioner Guerra.
Yes.
Commissioner Olson.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner, my apologies. Chairperson White.
Yes.
Thank you.
So with that, we're adjourned and see hopefully most of you at dinner in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Looking forward
Good
to it.
night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.